Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 41st annual, I think annual is a good word, Dads and Ed. I am so excited to be here. It is that time in the Great Plains when you look at the weather report, you see rain and snow because the weather people really have no idea, and it's just a matter of a few degrees whether you get rain or snow. It has been dreary all day, but we're going to pump a little sunshine into the evening. Right, Brent?
That's right. Excited about tonight.
Excited to be here as always, Josh Allen, Instructional Technology, one beautiful wife who's walking through the studio, aka our living room. And where am I? Council Bluffs, Iowa, right along the river. Drive over it every day. Three wonderful kids. Excited for tonight. One of the cool things about Dads and Ed is we all kind of know different people, and so we invite different people. So Don is not someone that I actually know. We've never met, haven't really conversed with him before, so I'm excited to get to know him. We do not have any guest hosts or guest introducers tonight because we're down a man for a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second. But Brent, go ahead.
Hey, Brent Callett here from Independence, Missouri School District in Kansas City, Mo, home of the world champion Royals. Got another new shirt here to show off tonight. Party like it's 2015. You know, it had been since 1985. So the wife got that for me on a recent shopping spree. She's good for that. But she's also amazing for supporting me. So, and our 5 children. So we're plugging away, as you mentioned, kind of a dreary day today. But I'm excited to get Don on here and visit with him about all the great things he's up to.
Good. And as those of you longtime listeners know, Devonstoning is also a basketball coach, and basketball season has started. And we got a message last night that they had what was it? They call it a jamboree or something like that. And so he warned us he'd probably be a few minutes late. So hopefully he will pop in. I see Bob Dylan. First guest of Dads and Ed. He's the only one who holds that title because you can only have one first, obviously. Chiming in on the hashtag already. If you want to get in touch with us, like Dr. Dillon has, feel free to reach out at Dads and Ed or use the hashtag Dads and Ed on Twitter. You can check out the audio version of this. If you think it's so outstanding you need to share it with someone else, by all means, send them to dadsanded.podbean.com or go to iTunes and check out Dads and Ed. So, if you're familiar with the show, you know that up next comes the water cooler segment. And we're going to touch a little bit on our guest, Don Wettrick, who will be showing up here in about 12 minutes or so, depending on how much we go over, which is fairly common, is the author of the book Pure Genius, which I just tweeted out. A link to the live show and actually a link to his website also. So you are welcome to look at that. Pure Genius is about his experiences with Genius Hour, which we are obviously going to get into a little bit. But Brent, how is your district going down this path, or what are they doing around the Genius Hour type stuff?
Yeah, you know, I know Don called it in the book his innovation class, and I had a chance to read it and would recommend reading it to anyone out there. It's a fantastic book, and my district, you know, we're just kind of going down a path of I have some teachers doing that. I've been kind of pushing it of late since I've gotten here, and this being my second year, just trying to encourage some folks to potentially look into those sorts of activities for students. So again, I'm excited. I feel like we've got the guru coming on tonight. You know, I was thinking about this morning as I was driving in, thinking about tonight's podcast about how I just wish my children would experience a teacher like Don at some point during their time in education, just around some of the innovation that he brought to them and the way he pushed those students to kind of be professional, as he called it, with their social media use and how they approached people and businesses and things, and just a very inspirational book again. And so just excited to visit with him a little more about it tonight.
You know, one of the things that I noticed, and full disclosure, I have not read the book. However, I like the idea that he even states on the front cover of just building the culture, and I
Mhm.
think that's one of the things that we really struggle with is one of our principals said it last year. We have all these pockets of excellence, but how do we make it a culture of excellence? And getting to that point. And one of the things you'll notice if you look at the innovationteacher.com, which is Don's website, um, he's got some big names that wrote in some praise for the book. You've got Daniel Pink, huge author. Who was the other one that I was going to throw out? Eric Schenniger, fantastic speaker and author as well. Howard Rheingold from Stanford. I mean, Adam Bella, former guest. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if Adam Bella is more known for his book or his time on Dad's and Ed.
Right.
We may have to ask Adam about that, and it may be in the context of the audience he's sitting in.
Right. I know where.
But it's obviously if you can get people like that to Tony Wagner's on here, a lot of great authors and great minds in education. If you can get those people to say something nice about your book and put it online, that's a pretty big um, heap of praise there from those people.
Yeah, and I tell you what, one of the things I want to point out before I forget is I just really appreciated in the book how Don mentioned, um, kind of I'll call it a failing forward, right? I mean, so that he was kind of transparent with that in the book, and I really appreciate that versus this idea of just this is all going to be perfect and it's going to work out just great. That you're going to have some struggles along the way, and he articulates that in the book very well. And again, very inspiring, and just thinking, hey, anyone can get after this, but and just realize, you might have some bumps in the road as you go down this idea or path of whatever we want to call it, genius hour. He called it innovation class, like
Right.
whatever it's called, 20% time.
Right.
But generally speaking, the same concept.
Well, and it was actually at church that I heard this analogy, and they were talking about, you can read as many books as you want to on golf, but until you get out there and swing a club, you're not going to be good at golf. And
Right.
I think the same thing is, just like you said, you can read as much as you want about it, but just try it and work out your own kinks because the kinks are going to be different in every school, in every classroom. They're all going to be different, but you're not going to know until you go out and try it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I've just been, like I mentioned, we've recently collaborated with a neighboring district, and I've been trying to support them from a financial standpoint, some of our library media specialists and other people, and getting them on board with perhaps introducing kids to some of these concepts. And so we'll see. I'm excited to see that continue to evolve and grow. So I want to shout out Bill Little, who's watching the show from my district. He took his kid hunting recently, had a good time with them, and he said some nice things here on Twitter about me. That doesn't usually happen. So, but anyway, thanks for tuning in, Bill.
Take that when you can.
Yep.
Um, Dad moment of the week. So hilarious story. So you know how the more kids you have, the younger ones tend to be the ones who get everything. And so our youngest, Reese, who just turned 3, my wife has finally gotten tired after all these years of laying on the floor next to her when she's trying to go to sleep. So my wife has started this little thing where she lets Reese sleep on my side of the bed. And when I go to bed, then about a half hour or so later, then I go pick Reese up and I carry her into her room, into her bed, and it works out great. So the other night, I go pick Reese up, or I go and I see her moving around a little bit, so I go get ready for bed, take my contacts out and all that. Go back in, go to pick her up, and she yells at me, "Put me down, Daddy." And I'm like, okay. So I put her back down in bed. She grabs the covers and snuggles underneath of them right in the middle of my spot. And my wife is also laying right in the middle of the bed. So I'm totally out of like space in the bed to sleep. So I have to go sleep on the couch. I fall asleep. I wake up about 1 o'clock in the morning, go up, finally get my daughter out of my bed and lay down uh, um, uh, finally at like 1 o'clock in the morning to get like 5 hours of sleep. That only dads can appreciate it. You sacrifice for your kids. But I told my wife this routine may need to change if this is going to continue happening because that we have a new couch. It's fairly comfortable, but not. It's comfortable for naps. It's not comfortable for full bedtime.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
that's a classic story of a tale of a family that grows into larger numbers and kids getting away with certain things that maybe didn't when they were first older. So I can totally appreciate that one, Josh, for sure. I had some time to spend with my kids over the weekend. My wife was gone, so I really soaked up some good time, and we made a fort this weekend and just had a blast kind of hanging out in the fort. And so anyway, that, I just have so many good memories as a kid building forts and blankets all over the living room, and just taking it over and watching cartoons on Saturday morning. So I busted that out with the group this weekend and just really enjoyed that time. So for me, that's definitely my dad's moment of the week.
I think it's kind of a lost art.
Yeah, I think so. I know Bob's chiming in on Twitter saying I probably haven't slept in my bed for years, considering the situation that you just told, which would be true. But I'm kind of a hard, fast guy. Like, they don't sleep in the bed. They're either going in a crib or somewhere else. Now, I'll admit I slept on couches with them perhaps once or twice, but or chairs that recline very well. But no kids in my bed. I'm telling you, that's a hard, fast rule for me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to be joined by our guest for the evening, Don Wettrick. Don is the, dang it, I lost it. I had the bio pulled up that I was so ready to read. So Don, instead of me totally making one up, and I can make one up if you'd like me to.
I mean, how creative can you get?
Well, Don is the innovation manager at what? You want to go Google or Apple? Which one?
It's like, you know what, I can do it. I mean, so I'm extremely, for a guy that used to be a broadcasting teacher, I'm ashamed of the backlighting that I have tonight.
Well, we are low budget.
You know what? Then welcome. Yes, I'm the innovation director at Noblesville High School. This is my 19th year teaching, which is kind of funny because there's my favorite quote in the book was from my dad, and it was about my 20th year of teaching. So yeah, I work for Noblesville High School. They're a wonderful, wonderful risk-taking high school that lets me do things that I didn't dream of a couple years back, and have written a book, and more importantly, I'm a dad to 3 kids who I just put to bed, and my wife is spectacular, so everything's good.
Now, before I let Brent ask a question, why did your dad put a note in about your 20th year of teaching when you just said you had been teaching for 19 years?
Well, yeah, so right, I wasn't always a teacher. My first couple years out of college, actually, I told myself that I was never going to be a teacher because everybody in my family is in education, and and I was the youngest, although I only have an older sister, and so my sister was a special ed. Actually, she was a deaf education teacher. My dad was a guidance counselor. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. That makes her in education. But after 3 years of not being in education, I don't know, I wasn't sleeping well at night, and plus I wanted to be, and quite frankly, this is the right place to say this. I also wanted to be the best dad I could be, and I wasn't a dad yet, but I mean, like, my dad was all-time pitcher, and a lot of the kids played in my yard, so that factored in. But after 3 years of not being an ed, and my parents paid for every cent of my education, mind you, I remember I called them up and I'm like, hey, I want to let you know that well, first of all, I'm not looking for any money. But I'm thinking about going back and getting my teaching degree, and so I thought he'd say no or don't do it or what are you thinking, but instead he took this big long breath and he's like, Donnie, I don't care if you teach for the next 20 years, just promise me you won't teach 1 year 20 times.
Nice.
Yeah, and that meant nothing to me at the time. I was like, okay, Dad, and until I saw in my first year of teaching I saw some people teaching the same year 20 times, and it broke my heart because I saw the students didn't like the class. Heck, they didn't like their class. They treated it with disdain. They were bored. So that always stuck with me my whole teaching career.
Yeah, that resonated with me, Tom, when I read the book too. I think for me, I've always been one that I remember I took over for a teacher that had taught fourth grade for like, I don't know, 100 years. And I thought, I admired that, but at the same time, I knew that wasn't me, right? Like I could not be in the same spot for that long without probably going out of my mind. So I've thankfully been blessed with lots of opportunities and changes, and I just kind of embrace those changes. But before I get into my question, I got to jump back to Bob, who's tweeting us, and he stayed the night at my house. I've had him as a guest, and he claims there were no children around. So that just shows how well I've got these kids trained. I'd like to point that out, that there's no sleeping in my king-size master suite. So, Don, I follow you on a lot of things because I've just been inspired by your work. And but before we get too serious here, let's talk about Andrew Luck and the Colts. You know, I saw on Instagram the other day we're there. The guy's a terrible fantasy pickup, just for the record. I don't have him, thankfully, but and I don't have Peyton Manning either, which is great. So, talk to us about that, please.
I want to interrupt very quickly for those of you that are listening on the podcast. So we are on our second question, and already our guest is shaking his head and is not happy about our question asking. So
no, man. I
Don,
mean,
go ahead now.
just be careful how you word this. First of all, I don't care about your fantasy picks, okay? So this is our boy. And secondly, he may not be a Colt. There's rumors going around that when he has to resign in 2017, if he keeps getting no protection whatsoever, he might reconsider. So, I'll be honest, the city's still in mourning that Peyton's gone, but you know, he had reached his. Which, by the way, if the free safety doesn't fall down on the Ravens, that game on the Ravens, I mean, they had it won. They should have won Super Bowl that year. Anyway, forget about it. Peyton deserves 3 rings. But back to Andrew Luck. Yeah, it's not his fault, man. Okay? They picked up a wide receiver from the Houston Texans that's my age, and then it picked up a running back that's also my age. So I say that lovingly. I'm 43, but no, I mean he'll be fine. It's not this year. All right, so go pick up your fantasy hoity-toity picks. We want longevity here, okay?
Does it make it any easier when Peyton Manning gets taken out in the third quarter?
Dude, see, you guys are just beating up on me now.
No, actually, in all honesty, that was a serious question.
No, it hurts. I mean, like, seriously, we still love Peyton Manning here. And it's just, I mean, a children's hospital is named after him. He does endless amount of charity work. He's a great guy. And, yeah, seeing him go out this way is, you know, it's almost second to watching Pete Rose go. So I'm a Cincinnati Reds kid growing up and watching that debacle. So it hurts, man. When one of your guys is limping off the field and they're having to throw in the towel on him, man. You know what? He got the yardage record, but I don't know if he's going to go for the wins or not. Is he going to start another game this year? I don't know.
Yeah, he might not even. I don't know. There was some speculation I saw today or this morning, I guess, of whether you even play again. I don't know. Which I can't imagine he doesn't play again. But boy, I just don't know that. I don't know. I have a great. I think Peyton Manning's fantastic. I actually like Andrew Luck. I'm just kind of giving you a hard time, but since I saw you were at the game.
We can all agree, though, that Tom Brady just doesn't need any more accolades, and we'll just stop at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you pointed out, but you're from Indy.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, Noblesville is just a suburb of Indianapolis. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so Don, I had a chance to read the book that you wrote, Pure Genius, which I really enjoyed, and I've been sharing ever since and kind of putting out there for people to read up on. But could you give us a quick synopsis of, you know, kind of what your thoughts were around the book and why you wrote it?
Yeah, so I wanted to write it only because, you know, it's kind of like if you ever see a really great movie or you hear a great song, you want to turn it up and tell everybody about it. You know, 5+ years ago, I got an email that just said, "Watch this," and it was a link to Daniel Pink's TED Talk. And we didn't have a Genius Hour moniker then. We didn't, you know, we just, you know, we started it literally like that next week after watching the TED video, and it was horrible. I mean, it's absolutely the worst thing ever. But I learned that it wasn't their fault. We've created a culture of subservience. So sit down, shut up, do your assignment. You don't need to think, you just need to react. I give you something for you to repeat back to me, and I'll pretend that I'm happy, and you pretend that you're happy, and then we're good. And so I gave him this opportunity to say, hey, what are you passionate about? And the number one thing I got was, I don't know. What have you always wanted to do? I've always wanted to get an A in this class. No, seriously, what are you passionate about? I'm passionate about getting an A in this class. And then I realized, like, there wasn't a lot of learning going on. There was just a lot of reciting going on, and that broke my heart, right? So, I asked to have my own class, and honestly, I'm kind of on a mission, and here's where I'm hoping not to offend people, but I love Genius Hour, 20% time, passion hour, whatever the heck you want to call it. I love it at the grade school level. And maybe even at the middle school level, up until maybe, I don't know, 8th grade. But at the high school level, I'm really trying to campaign for this to be its own elective. Innovation, to be innovative is like, it's like saying that you need an art class once a week. Creativity, there's got to be a spot for it. And it can be in art too. So I'm not going to dismiss art. I love it. But I really think there's a time for focused and purposed innovation, and if you boil everything, if you boil everything down, we learn how to think. We have a methodology that I blogged about. It's called the Roth IRA. I'm in love with that way of thinking. Other than a great tax-advantaged vehicle, the Roth IRA is kind of the way we think. Mind if I kick it for you?
Go right
Okay.
ahead.
No, absolutely.
Cool.
Go ahead.
So the Roth IRA is so this class is kind of like a Genius Hour on just every day. You pick something that you're really amped up about, or something that breaks your heart, and you want to see a change, and you take ownership of your education, and that means you write a proposal. You tell me the standards you're going to hit, and we chunk everything in 2 weeks, and I'll tell you why here in a second. I don't believe in that. Hey, this year on Genius Hour, I'm going to do this. Everything is in 2 weeks. And so, in reflecting last year, and by the way, this is one thing I love about my kids. They assess me. They don't work for me. I work for them without fail. And if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know about it. And so last year in the reflection, we were honestly trying to think about, like, what was our methodology, and we'd had a framework, but we didn't have a cool acronym for it. So basically, every great project starts off with the R, which is realization. You're jogging, you're just brainstorming, you're in the shower, whatever. And that realization, like, oh my gosh, I got this great idea, that leads to O, which is open discussion. You have to start getting your ideas out into the classroom. And ultimately, that leads to the T, which is tussle. We fight a lot. Some kid goes, oh, I've got this great idea. Another kid goes, no, it's not a great idea, and here's why. We don't take it personally. We adapt, right? So a lot of times, and especially when you get kids that are really tussling it out, a lot of times they go into the H, which is homogeneous grouping. A kid that's the really good engineer, and the artist kid is telling him that his app might sound okay, but it doesn't look right. Well, if those two can combine forces, you've got a great group. So that Roth part was the transition from the big to small group. And so the IRA, here's the hard part of hard parts. The I is ideation and prototyping. I get kids say, I want to build a game. Okay, do it. I want to write an app. Fine, do it. I want to write a book. Okay. And so prototype number 1 is 2 weeks. And at the end of those 2 weeks, and this is really how I assess and how I grade, at the end of those 2 weeks, I want you to blog your results. And don't blog to me telling me all these great, like trying to BS me and impress me. I want to know where you struggled. I want to know where your treasure lies, right? So you're like, hey, in this coding thing, I'm on section number 1, and it's tough, it's boring, it's struggling, or whatever. And then I can tell, and I can read these blogs, and sometimes they're in groups of 2 and 3, and I can see where they're not doing well. And so we have a conversation about it, and then that's where that leads to A, which is adjust. And so we literally adjust every 2 weeks, as opposed to saying, I see people and they go, hey, this year I'm going to build an app, and they say they're going to give it a year. Well, all three of us went to college. You know how a group project starts, and a big project starts the night before it's due. So by chunking it in 2 weeks, we're a really big fan of that, and get them out of their comfort zone. And we take to Twitter a lot. We use blogs a lot. My YouTube, man, the road to where is paid good intentions. I told myself this was the year I'd get a lot more YouTube content, but I have been so insanely busy that that's kind of taken a backseat a little bit. So I need to get more on YouTube.
Yeah. The part that struck me in the book, Don, that still resonates with me really, really well is the idea of you kind of talking to the kids about being professionals, and them using Twitter and just different feeds, social media feeds and things to help them make some of those connections to businesses and things. Can you talk a little bit about that and how the kids, or share a story perhaps that a success or failure for that matter too?
Sure. So actually one of my students, and he might even be watching tonight, Rylan Deere, is kind of funny this year. He wanted to teach some of the Twitter possibilities this year instead of me. You can take my class more than 1 year, but we spent a week on it this year, on not what you shouldn't do online. The students already know what they shouldn't do online. Brett Favre has taught us everything about what we shouldn't do online, right? So they already know. But what they didn't know was all the possibilities, and how to participate in chats, and how to use Twitter tools, and how to follow a hashtag, and what chats to be a part of. And so doing this is preparing our students for this awesomeness that you connect with people. Like one of my students right now, plus a former student, actually not my former student, but a former student in Noblesville. They have their own podcast, and they reach out to people. And I think last week they just had on Tony Wagner, and the week before was Eric Schettinger, and they reach out to really cool people. And no other time does that happen. Matter of fact, I just got back from Los Angeles more than a week ago. I was listening to this unbelievably cool podcast, the School of Greatness with Lewis Howes. And he was interviewing this dude that started Quest Nutrition, and the guy was blowing my mind, because he's like, he's grown so much. His employees he's got a ton of employees. The second fastest growing private company in the United States. And so he more or less said, I brought in all these speakers and thought leaders because I don't want a bunch of subservient employees. I want independent thinkers that make our company better. And he had on like Carol Dweck, and he had Rainn Wilson on the other day, and because they're a fitness company, they had like Tony Horton and some of these other people. And so after hearing his podcast, he said, I'm looking for that next Elon Musk, and I'm willing to help, the next generation. So I tweeted at him. Like then there, I'm like, hey, bro, I got your next Elon Musk. I got like 4 or 5 of them. So he tweeted me back, and he's like, okay, I'll bite. What do you got? And then I was telling him some of the things that we've done in the last year. I mean, we had 3 or 4 patents filed last year. And he's like, okay. And so he called my class, and he told me later he thought it was going to be I don't know. I think that I safely assume that he thought it was going to be a bunch of nice, cute kids. But instead, they were getting on there asking really hard questions, and asking about seed funding and angel investors versus absolute hawks and sharks and all these other things. And matter of fact, one of my kids that felt really good about talking to him, like Tom kind of shot him down, and he's like, no, you're wrong. And we kind of really just had this great powwow. And so after the period was over, he was still on Skype, and he's like, dude, you're students. That was incredible. And I was like, yeah. And so, and then 2 weeks later, he had me out to be on a show, which actually should be uploaded. I'm a huge fan. It's called Inside Quest. Actually, he just had somebody on the D School from Stanford last week, and Peter Demandez and some of these other, and then me. I just couldn't get over it. I was like flattered. But yeah, I mean, when does that happen? Or heck, the fact that class got started was really started by Dan Pink, because I asked to have this class and they said no. And I just started looking for allies, and so I reached out to a lady at Stanford named Tina Seelig. I found a guy at Duke, and then I got a hold of Dan Pink, and I'm like, hey man, I got this class. After watching your TED Talk, I'm going to do an entire class on it. And he's like, hey, let's Skype in. And so magically the class got approved after I made the Skype call with Dan.
It's amazing how you bring someone like that in, and that ends up happening.
Right.
I want to give a quick shout out to Bob Dylan. He did give you a C- for your lighting, Don. Apologies for that.
That's bad.
Apparently, Bob likes anagrams too. So R hot air is an anagram for Roth IRA, which I think if maybe instead of giving students an F if their project fails, maybe you could give them that. That would be maybe a nice alternative. Ron W., new to the show. Also appreciate him chiming in. Lots of great knowledge that he is dropping there. So great stuff there. One of the things you're, as we're getting a tour of your house, as you are doing some more of this traveling, how is that? You know, obviously going from a teacher to doing some more traveling and having the book and being able to share some of that. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Are you enjoying that? What do you think?
So it's funny that we're on a podcast about being a dad. My school is really generous with me, and by the way, I try to look for better lighting, and it's not better there either. Apologies, Bob. So I travel about twice a month, and I struggle with it only because my wife was my best friend. We've been dating since we've been 16, and so that's the only thing I don't like. I do not like being away from Alicia, and Bob will attest. I think Bob's met her. My wife's really attractive. I'm just throwing that out there. So there's that.
Nice.
If you don't believe me, I can post pictures, but But then I'll just be rubbing it in.
Direct message Bob later to verify. We don't need we don't want your door being beaten down any more than it already is.
Okay, wise choice, wise.
Experience, my friend, experience.
But the nice thing is that I give them people disclaimers when I travel. I'm like, hey, I will be stealing ideas from you. And it's funny. I go to Texas a lot, but I've also hit some really out of the way places, and it's funny that the out of the way places always assume that they're not innovative. So I was in this really small town in North Dakota, and then an even smaller town in Canada not too long ago, and they were doing really cool stuff, right? But they kept saying, well, this, you're an innovation expert, so this probably isn't that big of a deal. I'm like, well, A, I'm not an innovation expert. We just try stuff instead of talking about it. And B, no, what you're doing is really cool. But that's what gives me hope. And I honestly, I think that's what's helped us is that, I love Indianapolis, and believe it or not, it's like the 12th biggest city in the United States, if you didn't know. But people assume that there's nothing innovative or special about Central Indiana. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I can jump online and talk to Dan Pink. I can jump online. I can fly out to L.A. and hang out with Tom Bilyeu. These are the things that, I'm in love with. And quite frankly, I'm also telling people all the time, teachers, be travel agents as much as you can. I don't care if it's the second grade taking a field trip to the fourth grade hallway. They're going to benefit. Mm-hmm. It's that change of atmosphere and traveling. God bless. This is the one thing having educators as parents is the one thing I love being a teacher's kid, right? When it was summer, we traveled all summer, and I got to know people from all over the country. I've been to 49 of the 50 states, someday Alaska, someday. But yeah, getting out and traveling and meeting people and hearing fresh ideas, it's what makes life worth living.
Mm-hmm. Has there been any trips, Don, that you have taken that have really impacted, the things that you're doing and or have done?
Yeah, I've got to give I got mentally spanked by this girl in Weatherford, Texas. There was a group of 4 girls. They were just awesome. And oh my gosh, she just put it right to me. She was talking about how she loved Genius Hour, but she didn't. And they had done, I think they were like sending books to Haiti, and this was like a 4th or 5th grade girl. And oh my gosh, she said, I said, well, what do you mean, but you don't? And she's like, now get this, she's like, do you love hanging out with your kids? I said, yeah, it's my favorite thing. She said, well, how would you feel if you could only hang out with them for 20 minutes on a Friday? And how would you feel at the end of that Friday you knew that you couldn't see them for another week? I'm like, that's good. That's really good. She's like, well, I think Genius Hour needs to be longer because it's not work to us. It's what we want to do.
Mm.
And I was like, that's awesome. And so here I am, like, I'm serious. I'll talk to anybody about how I think that innovation class needs to be, and not just give it the obligatory 20 to 30 minutes on a Friday. But here was this elementary girl, this school girl that was just in, Weatherford, Texas, Curtis Elementary, make it more specific. And they were telling me like, hey, we love it, but we want more time, which is proof. When the kids are doing things that are relevant to them, it's no longer school, it's life. And I found it inspirational to be around. And then I pick up little bits here and there, but I'll always remember like where I was sitting and like listening to that girl and going, oh my gosh, that was a really great point.
One of the questions that we like to ask quite a bit is, how has being a dad impacted you as an educator? You mentioned you've been doing this for 19 years or so, and I believe your kids are a little bit younger than that. So do you remember that changing, or how do those two impact each other?
You have to repeat the question again.
So how does being a dad affect what you do in the classroom?
Actually, I think it's almost vice versa. I enjoy talking about my kids in class. I'll always remember, man, I got really choked up. One of my favorite things of being a teacher is not being their teacher anymore and watching them progress as human beings. And I'll always remember and it's actually happened more than once, but every now and then I'll get Father's Day cards from former students. and not choke shop. But one of them said, I always remember a girl named Ashley wrote me, and she's like, thank you for talking about your wife and your kids lovingly. She said it really made an impact on me because, her background wasn't similar to Alicia and ours. And, I think knowing that we're on display, I think it's probably one of the greatest things that male teachers can do is establish that sense of normalcy. Especially, listening to like Tony Dungy and some of these other guys that have been really influential teachers and coaches. I've loved being a dad and sharing everybody and all my students how much I love being a husband and a dad.
That's awesome. I know, just recently if I hug my wife in front of my kids, my daughter will run up. She's 5, she's kindergarten now. She will run up and hug us as well. And then, of course, my other boy or two might join in just because I think as followers. But it's so interesting just how I act around her and what I'm doing with her that impacts them in the way they see us, or see me as a dad. So anyway, Don, I'm curious, like, as so I know you were doing the innovation class, you were teaching for a while, and you've now moved into this new role. I'm just kind of curious, like, since I don't know you as well as others, like, where are your inspirations coming from now, or how that's in the new position? Do you feel like you're making the impact you wanted to make?
Well, I'm still in the classroom.
Oh, you are? Okay, I guess I didn't know.
So I wear 2 hats for the school.
Okay.
I teach basically half time. So we're on an every other day schedule. So this week I taught, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the next week it will be Tuesday, Thursday. And then my days that I don't, I oversee what is basically what is going to be the maker inventor innovation zone, basically. So we're kind of developing a makerspace that's functional, and I oversee library budgets, and then we do some tech stuff. But it also gives me a chance to train and work with other educators. So that's where my inspiration comes. It's still in the classroom. I'm not ready to give that up. I love it too much, especially if there's something so fun with, at times, being the dumbest one in a room, and I'm cool with that, because some of the things my students are working on, I'm looking over shoulder going, that's cool. I should do that.
That's awesome, though. I mean, getting out of their way, I say it all the time, like, just get out of their way. Like, and just, I love playing the role of support, and it seems like from when I read your book that that's a lot what you get to do, with your network. And I mean, I just think it's fantastic and very inspiring to be able to, I'm constantly trying to do that for people, and I wish I could do it on even a greater level if I could just get them to buy in sometimes to certain pieces. So I didn't have that opportunity necessarily to do what you were doing with students on a classroom level per se, because all this stuff kind of came about after I got out and got into administration stuff and all that good stuff. But so anyway, I was just kind of curious, and I apologize for screwing up that.
No. Well, but you bring up a really great point. I mean, even if I weren't in the classroom, I would still want to be, Gladwell talked about it in Tipping Point. So many teachers are connectors, right? I mean, we're celebrities in our own town. We know everybody that knows everybody. It's the reason why some people get into, insurance or real estate, because we know everybody in town. Well, why don't you put that to work? People bemoan the fact of, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, then start knowing people.
Right.
Get your students connected to that network that we already have, I'm sorry, this is my only soapbox moment, which is why sometimes I get so irritated / scared about the connected educator movement. Connected educator means you listen and you follow back and you take advice and you seek things out instead of, I have 200,000 followers and I follow 12. Who the heck are you?
Right.
That really irritates the heck out of me, because, here a lot of us are out there evangelizing how great Twitter is, and, some of the skeptical people that are on the fence are like, hey, I tweeted at fill in your favorite name, and they didn't get back to me. They said that they were being connected, and they didn't get back. Well, you know what? Talk about a tipping point. We're at a tipping point that if some of the people don't take their role as a connector, and by connector that goes both ways, I'm afraid that this is, it could be a cute fad.
Yeah, I mean, I've written about that one, the numbers and some of the people, and I've always appreciated those that, like yourself, maybe perhaps in this case you're an author, or Dr. Dillon is an author, but you reach out to the person on Twitter and you're able to actually have a conversation or get a response back versus just getting ignored and being kind of a number in a sense, based off of I have so many followers, or I get listed in the top 25 educators to follow. That sort of stuff just drives me nuts.
Well, but it's deserving when you're doing it on both ways. You're a connector. That's awesome. Yeah. Which, although this is also the way I feel about the term innovation, I think I joked about this in my book. When I saw a commercial for Cottonelle, a new innovative layer of softness, something you wipe your butt with is innovative. Everything in the world is innovative right now. And, sometimes what we pass off as innovative isn't. And so I'm really, really guarded about that term, because, innovative or trying things you haven't done, not just repackaging something to make it seem like it's a layer of softness.
I think that's a fantastic point, and I think one of the things that I've noticed with some of our staff, one of the things I've noticed with some of our staff is that they, like you said, they don't think it's innovative, when really it's like, well, yeah, but we're not doing that very well anyway. Just like little things, like, okay, that's fine, but we have to do little things before we can do big things. We have to work our way up there.
Yeah. But working your way up there is the innovation part. I think it's really freaking innovative to have students try things that they're not going to be good at. I think it's innovative for a teacher to say, I'm not going to grade you based on outcome. I'm going to grade you on your journey and your success. I'm going to grade you on how many people you can connect with. I'm going to grade you on anyway. And by the way, when people tell me, oh, students don't like risk, watch a kid play video games. They love to die. They love to press reset. I mean, it's mastery 101. And it's like, oh my gosh, I turned left. Next time I die, I'm going to turn right. And we give all this buzzword to mindset. Well, mindset depends on overcoming obstacles. And the rules in which we play right now, our colleges say, hey, if you get an F, you're off our list. Well, everybody fails. You're supposed to. And if you're offering a class where you get an A on something the first try, guess what? It wasn't much of a struggle, was it? So,
right.
I just don't like the unconducive environments of high-stakes grades and GPA wars and all this other stuff. So, let's take it is innovative when all of a sudden a teacher, and there's a lot of us out there, when we say, you know what, we know we have to grade you, but we're going to grade you in unconventional ways. We're going to grade you based on progress and trial and error and all that fun stuff.
Well, Don, we appreciate you joining us. We have a couple more things to do here tonight. We are down a man. Devin did not show up. He gets docked pay for that. We don't give time off, so it's unpaid leave. He is missing someone to follow on Twitter and someone from his district to follow. Can we put you on the spot for one person everyone should follow, and then someone from your district that we should follow?
Sure, man. One person you should follow.
We can give you time to think if you'd like.
Dude, I can just rip them off, bud.
Go nuts.
Somebody you should follow. I'm going to go with Tom Bilyeu. He's the guy that started Quest Nutrition, and I really like him, and he runs an awesome show called Inside Quest. I think it's TOMBILLYEU. And somebody from my district, man, there's a lot of people to choose from. If it's okay, I'm going to cheat and give two. One guy that's really kind of leading the way for standards-based grading, and he does a really bang-up job on that, is Ryan_Bruick. And then if you want to know more about one-to-one iPad stuff and all things awesome tech, C.E. Steffen, Christy Steffens, Steffen, also a fantastic follow.
That was actually perfect because we always say one person from your district. I don't know if Devin has ever limited it to one person, so you filled that bill perfectly. Nice job.
And please.
Brent, app of the week, site of the week, I guess.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of going app/site because I think there's a website for it too. I have not had a chance to explore this, so full disclosure, I just got wind of this one recently. I can't even remember where, but it's called Class Kick, an iPad app, and there's a website, ClassKick.com. I haven't had a chance to play with it, but it reminded me of I don't know, Josh or Don, if you remember Ask3, the app.
Yep.
Kind of the idea of getting feedback to kids, not only from the teacher, but also from their classmates. So you can upload different things, and then potentially kids can kind of like chat with their classmates as well. So I personally haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I think it might be worth trying out or looking into. So it's on my to-do list. So I'm going to share that one for the app of this particular show.
Well done. So my coming event. I don't know if you guys know this. Thanksgiving is coming. Judging by people in my neighborhood, they don't realize it's coming either. Apparently, some of them think that it's Christmas time already. This is one of those things. There's a lot of things in life that are not big deals that just tick me off to no end, and this happens to be one of them. Just wait till the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's not that hard. I don't care if people put their lights up, but why? You should have seen the number of places that had their lights on last night as we were driving by. So we're driving down the road. We're going to my parents' house, and all these people got their lights on. So I'm yelling at them. It's not Thanksgiving yet. Respect the Pilgrims, which is a great hashtag that we use here in Nebraska. Good friend of Brent and I, Corey Dahl, Corey Dahl on Twitter, loves Christmas music year round. I can't stand it. I love Christmas music starting the Friday after Thanksgiving. So Corey gives me a hard time about it all the time, so I always go back with hashtag respect the pilgrims. So as we're driving, I'm yelling at these people. My 7-year-old goes, hey, why don't you roll the window down and do that? So I did. So I rolled the window down next time we found one, yelled out the window that they need to respect the pilgrims a couple times. So in case you haven't heard, Thanksgiving is coming next week, and I will be more than happy on our next show to talk Christmas music at that time. Anyway, I feel better. Thanks for that little...
Glad you got that off your chest.
Yes, I feel like I just can get off the couch now.
Yeah.
My district spotlight. Lorraine Dutzman. So this year in Iowa, they have this thing called TLC grants, Teacher Leadership Compensation Plan, and basically it lets us hire more instructional coaches, which is fantastic. We hired 11 new ones, which is amazing for a 200. I don't think we have 250 staff, but we have 11 instructional coaches for 250 staff, which is a phenomenal ratio. Most school districts would love to have that, and Iowa is really stepping that up. And we have a lot. I know that throughout this year I'm going to mention more than one of these instructional coaches because they're really stepping it up. But Lorraine has moved from the Talent and Gifted program into a high school instructional coach, and been doing a phenomenal job of just sharing out what's going on in the school, and that's kind of what we've talked in the past about Twitter just being a place to just say, hey, check this out, this is what we're doing. It's not really showing anything too big, but just saying, hey, this is what's going on. So L_Dutzman, I'll put that on the Dads and Ed Twitter account for this week.
Sweet. I'm going to roll with, I'm going with two individuals because they work closely together in our, what we call our impact program. And I've been helping and supporting them kind of getting rolling with using Minecraft in their classrooms. And that would be Sheila Bonner and Melissa Barkley. Melissa is at Melissa Barkley. Pretty much sounds like it's pretty much, Charles Barkley last name. And then Sheila Bonner is at she's got INDEP for independence, or short for independence, and then impact. So I just tweeted them out on the Dads and Ed hashtag. Just really proud of what they're up to and kind of pushing themselves constantly to get better. And again, back to that support thing I mentioned earlier, and that's a scenario and someone says, hey, can you buy these licenses for me for our kids? I'm like, yep, I'm in. Let's make it happen. So she came to, one of them, Sheila came to Ed Camp KC last weekend and was, just soaking it all up. And I mean, pretty much anything right now that I throw out in front of her from hey, try this or look at this, she's on it. And then, like I said, she's just doing some great stuff for kids. And she's been teaching, I'll say, for several years. And, I just appreciate someone who's constantly trying to get better and do things. And Melissa is new to our district, so glad to have her on board because she's fantastic as well. So I just want to keep supporting them and shout them out on the show tonight.
You mentioned Melissa Barkley, spelled like Charles. Does she consider herself a role model?
Absolutely.
That was just terrible.
We've come to the end of another fantastic show. We are back in 2 weeks with Christopher Nessie, host of the House of Ed Tech podcast. But Don, very much appreciate it. I said before you came on, nights like this are exciting for me because we all get to pick and choose who we want to have on the show, and a lot of times we don't know the other people. Like in this case, Brent was the one who had called you up and hooked you up, and you weren't someone that I had connected with before, but excited to meet you and excited to learn more from you from here on out. So thanks for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you. And I can safely say that I will put up my Christmas lights after Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Much appreciated. You will be welcome back on the show then.
That was the litmus test. All right.
We usually save that question for after we turn off the broadcast, but since you mentioned it during the show, I'll mention that the invitation is now extended to come back for a second time.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Life is made. All right, we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
See you guys. Say bye.